We ask for your grace to be inspired to achieve our dreams and our career goals in Jesus' name. Inspire our minds, Jesus, with ideas and things that would help us to achieve our destinies to the glory of your holy name. For in Jesus' name we've prayed. Amen. Are we happy to be here?
Super excited.
Hi, David. Hi, Joy. Hi, Timmy. Hi, Josiah.
Hello.
Thank you, David. Joy, say hi. Timmy, say hi. Josiah, say hi.
Hi. Hi.
I think we have Josiah left. Hi, Josiah.
I don't think he has connected his audio, so you won't hear him.
I see muted. Okay, it's not. Yes, connecting audio now.
Okay. On today's edition of Inspire Online, we have a notable personality with us who's going to be speaking to us this evening. He's an experienced researcher, a master's degree holder, PhD holder. Like, you need to know how tasking it is, and in no other discipline but mechanical engineering. So he has a PhD, a master's, right? He's skilled in engineering design, mathematical modeling, prototyping, computer aided engineering tools. I mean, like that's a lot. That's a lot of skills. So I'm sure that he's going to inspire us tonight and answer some of our heartfelt questions. So let's join me welcome Dr. Stephen Agha. Please, let's see your claps. Let's see your claps. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much for the introduction.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. We are really, I for one, I'm excited to have you. I've heard so much about you, and I know that I'll be learning a lot from you this evening. Before we look at like some of the questions that some of the teenagers have already asked, or like the questions they were looking at being answered when they decided to join this meeting, I would like Dr. Stephen to give us a brief introduction of himself so that we can hear from him like the journey it has been, how it has been so far in his academic journey. Please, sir, if you would please help us with some of your pearls, or what you've gained, what you look at like when you look back.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that introduction, and a very big thank you to Dr. Ose for inviting me to speak on this. I don't take it lightly. I know she has several colleagues, several friends that she could have invited to speak here, but I feel honored to be on this platform talking. So my journey, I've actually given a talk at one point called My Engineering Journey. Maybe I should have brought up those slides. It was for students who were considering coming to the university where I studied my PhD, and I was asked to talk briefly about what it is that I've done and how I've come to where it is that I am. And as the anchor had mentioned earlier, I studied mechanical engineering at University of Port Harcourt. It was a 5-year program, meaning that it's something that you need to be sure it's something you're interested in before you go into. Personally, my drive to study mechanical engineering was my love for airplanes. For a long time, when anybody asks me, what's your goal, what's your purpose in life, and I'll say to make and to fly planes. I looked around, there wasn't really a university in Nigeria who did aeronautical engineering or aerospace at that time. I think there was just one who had a final year elective in something related to that. And so the next best at that time was mechanical engineering. It wasn't really the next best. I think it was really what I really needed to do, because it gave me that broad introduction to different aspects of engineering. And aerospace engineering is actually a subset of mechanical engineering. Having completed that, while I was still doing that, my industrial training experience was in an oil servicing company. It's an indigenous one, but was doing quite well, doing really well. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I was doing quite well. I had some time there. It was very good experience getting hands-on, being able to take the theoretical knowledge that I'd gotten in classrooms and apply them in reality, in real world situations where what I did really mattered, because you make a mistake, it costs money. You're sluggish, it could have a safety impact on something. You do your calculations wrongly, it has real world consequences. So it was somewhat some pressure, even though being an intern, they don't let you do everything and you have someone looking over your back. But it was a good place to start learning. After I completed my NYC, I went back to the same company. I was asked to come back. They liked my work ethic. They liked my hands-on approach to work. So they asked me to come back. I worked with them for a while. And honestly, at a point I got to where it seemed things were a bit routine for me and I wanted more. I felt there was much more. I was interested in engineering. I liked what I was doing, but I still had that goal of, okay, make and fly planes. So I went for my master's. It was in advanced mechanical engineering. The advanced just means that you have your background in mechanical engineering, and so you're taking it a step further, as opposed to certain other master's degrees in mechanical engineering that simply tagged mechanical engineering, which are like conversion courses. So this gave me a bit of that space to explore things that I could do in aerospace engineering. I made sure I took courses there because you could mix and match your modules. It was a bit flexible. So I veered off in that direction. I finished that. I completed that with a distinction by God's grace. I returned back to Nigeria, had a stint with another oil servicing company. This was an international one, the second largest right now by revenue. I think yes, they still hold that place of second largest, Halliburton Energy Services. And while I was with them, again, interesting, productive, you have the opportunity to get your hands dirty, real world experience. And it was enjoyable. You had prospects for growth, but I still wanted more. You can see I'm one of those people who is satisfied, but not completely satisfied, constantly looking for more while you are somewhere. And I remember so that was even during when I wanted to go for my master's, and I had my supervisor from undergrad asking me, you have a good job. Are you sure you know what you're doing? And I told him, like, I knew exactly what I was doing, that it's not a problem. If I go for that, I'll return, I'll get a better job. Started with confidence, like I knew what it was. Deep down, I was wondering, okay, what really are you doing? But when it came back, got another job, which was with a multinational company. They do things a bit differently, to be honest. And when I left there, I came here in 2015. I came for my PhD, still in mechanical engineering. At this point, I decided to specialize in control systems and dynamics, but my research field was on unmanned aerial vehicles. So that was something that I enjoyed. I officially completed because you have series of activities after you submit your viva. After you submit your thesis, you have a viva. You're examined. You're told to make some adjustments to your work. So that takes some time. So when everything was ratified was February this year. So that's been my journey pretty much in engineering.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I mean, this is really an interesting journey. But I'll just ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Seeing that you have pushed to keep learning more, what has been your motivation? Like, what have you looked at and said, I think I need to know more? I know you mentioned that at some point it was too much routine, right? Because like we have some people here who are undergraduates and they maybe need a reason to further their studies, or they want to say, this is where I end it. I want to go into career. So what was your motivation when you decided to go back to school, when you decided to work, so that they can be able to decide at this point in time, based on this, I think I should return back to school?
Okay, two things. First of all, I want to say that the desire to learn should stream from that understanding that there's much more you can do. They say there's always room for improvement. So at the top, you've mastered a skill, you've learned something, there's always room for improvement. And it's from that knowledge that I am meant for more, I am capable of more. What I'm doing, at some point, ask yourself, am I really maximizing my potentials? So that's one. And the second thing is looking at what your own interest, your own desires, what it is that drives you, what it is that motivates you. It doesn't have to be leaving career to go back to school. You could have on-the-job learning. That is the field that you're interested in. There's so much resource to keep learning, to keep growing. So I think it should stem from that desire. I want to be better. I'm capable of much more than what it is that I'm doing. And so if it's taking online courses, I'll say take it. It doesn't really mean that you have to say, okay, I'm going to cut short whatever career it is I am in to go for master's, PhD. It could be just you having that continuous development, that constant growth. The danger is when we come out of university and feel that all learning has ended. I think that's a grave mistake that some people make. All learning has ended. I have a degree that says I have learned enough. You find out that as you go on in time, things change. There's the trend of things improving. And if you don't improve yourself, if you don't master new skills, if you don't broaden your skills, you find out that at a point, you wonder if you are still relevant to whatever industry it is that you are in. I have a friend who, I think that was when we were an undergrad, and he used to tell me, this your certificate you're going to get, think of it as having a 2-year validity. After that, it should be what you've done with it, where you've progressed with that knowledge and able to acquire more. It shouldn't be still falling back to. And that was a perspective that I think from then it actually jolted me that, okay, it's not just resting on my oars. I've gotten a BEng, mechanical engineering, and so that's it.
Wow. Thank you so much. I think one thing I should highlight from what you said is that we should never see learning as finished. We should all keep learning. we should always keep learning, because the rate at which the world is changing, what seems relevant today within the next 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years would not be the same again. You find that phones that were made in 2015 are now obsolete, right?
Yep.
So it's really important that we keep learning, and that's one motivation for doing like a postgraduate study. So I know many of us here are undergraduate students, right? But I want us to know that we should be inspired to like take on postgraduate degrees in order to improve how much we know and know better. But the question I want to ask, I know that you did your master's abroad, right?
Yes, I do.
In the UK, and your PhD as well. So I want to ask, what difference does it make to study? What do you think is the difference studying like doing your master's abroad and doing it in Nigeria? Like, do you advise? Do you think there's a difference, or do you think that there's something that do you think there's no difference? Like, you can do it in Nigeria or do it like elsewhere, or do you recommend that your postgraduate degree is primarily done in the UK or in an advanced country, if I would say?
Honestly, it's a good experience having gone through a different educational system. I'll highlight some of the differences. I remember during my master's, we're going to have our first exams, and I had studied really hard for it. You study how you study in Nigeria. I had read, I had tried to remember formulas, I had the memorized constants, equations, and yes, it's been my own style to understand what it is that I'm trying to memorize. So if I'm certain times it's even how to work from first principles to derive an equation. I like to know that. But in this case, we got to the exam. I think that was computational experimental methods. And we had a formula sheet where basically you had all the equations that you are going to be using, the constants, and the questions that we're going to be answering were more applied. It wasn't really just look for the equation and just solve the mathematics about it. It wasn't a math course, it was engineering, meaning that you had to bring in your engineering intuition, you had to understand what the problem is and prefer a solution. So the calculations were just a subset of the skills that you needed to deploy, but they were not the main thing. So you find out that there's that emphasis on it. I had done a few programming courses. In fact, my undergraduate project, my final year project, was on developing a software, basically a design algorithm for designing journal bearings. And so I had to push myself to learn programming. But you find out how it was embedded in my study for masters, where within my first how many months, I was quite proficient with using MATLAB, something that I had never touched in my 5 years in engineering. But that said, I think of a colleague. So he's just completed his own PhD now in China, but where we really took a detour, when I came to study for a master's here, he stayed back in Nigeria and also did a master's in the same university. He came out quite well-rounded. It's not like he's deficient in anything, but the difference was he needed to push himself. He needed to really have that interest. He wasn't doing it just because he wanted a paper certificate that said, I have a master's. He was interested in that for his career development. So at the end of the day, the environment is good. You have it better structured in some more advanced countries. But I think more importantly is your own interest in learning, your own, because you have people as well who come here and spend time. It's almost like you get distracted with, oh dear, I mean, in foreign lands, this is the place I've been seeing on TV, or I can do this, I can do that. Shopping, travels, if you put all of that in perspective, know where they fall into, and know why you're really here, what you're really here for, I think you can make the most of the situation. So study abroad, study in Nigeria, I think it's more of your interest in learning, your interest in developing yourself at the end of the day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I think it's really important that we know that above, yes, the environment matters. Yes, the culture matters, but above these things is your personal interest and your desire to learn. Because like I also recognize the fact that people come abroad, right? They have these resources and yet they are not better off than people that did their masters in Nigeria or back in Africa. So I think, and I think the desire to learn is usually what pushes people wherever they are. So it doesn't matter whether you are in the UK, if you have that opportunity, beautiful, right? But it's essentially your personal interest, right? But I want to ask, would you be like by the grace of God, you are now a doctor, an able doctor, in pursuing a future career, would you be looking towards the academia or would you be looking at working in the industry?
I'm actually interested in both, even though at the moment, tilting more to industry.
Okay.
And the truth is that it's quite an interesting, and I won't really use the word easy, but you can have that journey where you go to industry, you can be research active in industry, you can gain some more hands-on skills, managerial skills, and that can still bring you back to academia if you so wish to. So I have some, there's this professor in my university who finished his PhD, went straight to industry, worked there for a while, but was still research active. He came straight back as a professor. He didn't even have to start as a lecturer or anything like that.
Wow.
It was the research skills that were important. And I am interested in academia, but I'm really looking at the industry setting right now, and then we'll come back at some point.
Okay. Thank you so much. The reason why I ask this question is because I know that there are a few people here who are looking at being great engineers, being great maybe artists, whatever career that they've decided to go into, and they are wondering what would a master's do for me, or what would a PhD do for me if I'm going to work in the industry. So I want you to highlight what you think the impact of having an extra degree, right? What impact does it have on your industrial work skill? I know that it might be plain that if you are going to become a professor, obviously you have to have a master's, you have to do a PhD. But some people may not be able to understand what it means or like the impact. Why should I do a master's if I want to become an engineer? If I want to become an oil and gas engineer, if I want to become a chemist, if I want to become a biologist, if I want to become a lawyer, why do I need a postgraduate degree? So I just want you to help us like understand the difference between what you learn in your bachelor's or in your undergraduate degree and what you learn in your postgraduate degree and the effect it has both on your mind and on your career.
Okay, let me try explaining what going from a bachelor's to a master's to a PhD, what that really entails. And I quickly just drew something here. I don't know if you can see it, but basically I have 3 circles, actually 2 and a dot. So think of your undergrad as that big outer circle. you're supposed to be broad, you're supposed to learn about several things, but maybe not in as great depth. It's almost like you're given an introduction to these things, you're made aware of them, you're going to learn how some of these things work, but how much depth and what you're going to focus on depends on you afterwards. Now, in master's, I drew a smaller circle within it. You're still taking what it is that you've learned in, I'm going to use mechanical engineering because that's what I know quite well. So you're still taking what you know in mechanical engineering, but taking a subset of what you've done in your bachelor's, in your undergrad, and going in more detail. Now, the masters, a lot of time is taught, even though you can have research masters. So they are trying to direct you in one area. Should it be, for instance, you want to go into control systems, you want to focus in dynamic systems, you're gradually getting more specialized. Now, a PhD, I put something like a dot there, because in reality, what you're going to be doing is in the whole vast body of knowledge, you are looking at one very specific thing, very specific. So in my case, I was looking at the design framework for a UAV, making it powered by renewable energy. So I'm looking at control systems, I'm looking at design, but I'm focused on this one thing, such that at the end of the day, at the end of the program, I can come out and I'm basically a world leader in that one thing that it is that I've spent so much time focused on, because that's what I've done for a couple of years. So if I look at the dynamic system for the dynamic equation for this system, I immediately know what it is. I can tell you what parameters will do what. I understand that. If I look at the design, if you give me like a design specification for this, I can look at it, interpret it, tell you what will work, what not to do, tell you about materials, all in this line. But if you bring something on thermodynamics to me right now, I'm going to have to spend time to say, okay, let me review, let me revise. It's not like I can't do it. I still have that residual knowledge from my undergrad. Basically, what I'm getting to in this is that as you go higher in your studies, you're getting more narrow but deeper. So you're getting more specialized but getting deeper knowledge, more specific knowledge, more specialized. Now, if you are interested in a particular specialty, then I think that's one reason to go into that. Not necessarily because you want to go into an academic career, but it gives you the opportunity to specialize on this one thing that interests you, to develop your knowledge on it. And when you get into research, to also drive progress, extend the boundaries of knowledge in that area. So at the end of this PhD, while I'm a specialist in this one area, you can ask me practically any question there and I'll have some idea on it. But it doesn't mean I don't know anything outside of that. I've gained some very interesting transferable skills. I'm very good at managing projects, because this was a project I had to manage on my own from start to finish. I had a supervisor who, to be honest, I think they do that on purpose, where the person looks at it and says, okay, do you think it's going well? Do you think you can do it? So it's more of asking you questions about it. It's when you are really going off point, you're doing something entirely I shouldn't do. That's when you're going to have someone tell you, okay, I think you should come back, look at this again. But it's your project. If you don't drive it, nobody will drive it for you. So you have to have that skill of deciding what outcomes you want, what goals, you define those and driving it. You're going to be able to manage your time. These are skills that you can honestly pick them up in other places. For instance, you've worked in a company for several years, you progress through the ranks. and maybe get to where you're a manager, you've gone for several courses and all of that, you're going to learn these skills as well. But the thing about the academic environment is that it's structured, and you have the opportunity to learn some of these things really quickly and in quite a hands-on fashion. So if you're thinking of progressing in academics, going for a master's, going for a PhD, I think the question should be, what do you want to do with it? What is it that your end goal is? Start with the end in mind. Is it that you want to develop expertise in this area? Is it that you want to get in-depth knowledge of something? Is it that you want to gain some transferable skills that you can bring and say, I understand this, the technical details, but I also have soft skills that will help me in other aspects. So it's beyond just wanting a career in academics.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I'm really learning a lot, and I'm sure that everyone here is also learning a lot. Please, if you are still with us and you are enjoying this thing and learning a lot from it, please put a thumbs up, a clap in the comment section. If you have questions, we'll be taking questions shortly. You can either write out your questions in the comment section or raise your hand so that we can, ask you to say your questions out. All right. We just have 2 more questions before we take general questions from everybody. I know that based on what we've heard, right, we know that if you want more knowledge, go out for a postgraduate degree, especially if it is an area that you really love and you want to know more about. But a little less of the technical details. How do you think that some of us here can go about getting those admissions? Because I mean, like, especially if you want to study abroad, some of the things like that, how do we get scholarships? How do we even apply to schools abroad? Because some of us have had a taste of the Nigerian system, and we feel like, oh, we need to go out, we need to see things, we need to learn, we need to change our environment and then see how things are done and let it inspire us. So how do we go about it? How do we decide what country, what school, where's the best place to go? How do we go about starting this? Because, sometimes when you think about everything, how you have to go about it, at times, like, you just give up. You're like, I don't think I can do this. Let me just find 1 or 2 things, to do. But how do you think we can go about finding admissions, scholarships, making those applications and being successful at it?
Okay. I'm going to start from my experience and try to broaden it. I think I really started paying attention to scholarships and postgraduate studies outside of the country. When I think it was my sister-in-law who called me and said, okay, Shell was offering some scholarships. And I was like, yeah, okay, let me check it out. And I checked it out. It was very specific. They had specific courses they wanted you to study in specific schools. And I wasn't really interested in any of those. Okay. So what did I do? I decided to apply for the course it was that I was interested in the school that I checked and found that it was going to meet my requirements, what it is that I wanted. But the question of funding, I didn't solve that part. I honestly didn't know what. The only thing is that I somehow felt if I get this admission, I'll still be able to apply to that same scholarship and somehow explain that, it's not just, it didn't happen that way, but it was a good thing because it drove me to try to meet that deadline. So I did all the applications, did everything in good time and got the admission. So it was now a question of, how do I fund this? I was actually working at that point in time. So somehow it was a question of, okay, if I get this, good. If I don't, oh well and good. I just finished NYSC. And I actually didn't get funding for the first year. And so what did I do? I called the school and told them, see, I'm deferring my
Sure.
admission. And they told me, you were something funny. They told me I had booked to come and stay in school accommodation. And I think that counted a few days. And so they told me I'll need to call and cancel that as well. So funny thing was, when I called them and told them I won't be coming this year, I'll probably be coming next year, I had no idea how I was going to come. But what they told me was I'd had that lockdown for me for, was it about 2 weeks or something like that? And so they were going to charge me and put it on my account. And I said, no problem, laughing in my mind, like, where are you guys going to see me to collect this money? But the funny thing was, the next year, when I went back to that school, they still recalled that charge and still said, we're going to have to make this deduction. So be sure that when you're doing all those things, you know that it's going to catch up with you sometime. So I'll start with saying you should try to research what is it that you want to study. I know someone who has told me, I want to study abroad. What do you want to study? Anything that is within my field. Where do you want to study? Anywhere, Europe, US, whichever one is good for me. And I'm like, that is not specification in any way. You don't know what you want to study, you don't know where you want to study. And in his case, it's because there is a scholarship somewhere that he's confident of getting. So that's why he's thinking of it. So let it be that, first of all, you've sat down to think, what do I want to achieve with this? So like I said before, begin with the end in mind. That's rule 1 of the 7 habits of the highly effective Stephen Covey. Begin with the end in mind. Think of it. What is it that I want? For some people, after study, they also want it to be a basis for immigration. So think of that. Some of them, after study, they want to stay back and work for a bit, gain some experience, and then return. Think of that. With all of this in mind, you should be able to say, okay, I think the policies within this country in general will favor this. So do I want to stay back? Maybe a country where they speak English will be helpful to you. The subject matter I'm interested in studying, do they have a thriving industry? So for instance, the UK has a very good industry for engineering. So it's not going to be all theory. The US has a good industry for engineering. Canada does, and they're English speaking. So for me, those were my catchment areas. For scholarships, so after that, the next thing is to choose what university it is that you want to. So don't simply look for which university is, honestly, I didn't even know this when I was applying. It was someone who told me, look for universities that are top tier. There's a reason why this one, they ask you to pay this amount of money, and this other one, they ask you to pay this amount of money. They are really not the same. It might be that you go there, you read the same books, but the network, the exposure you get from this, it's not the same as what you get in this. So actually think of those small details. They actually matter. And by the time you've narrowed it to a few schools, do your due diligence. Go to the websites. Right now, there is plenty of information on their websites. If you are not sure how to navigate and find everything you want, go to the website and type for their brochure. Ask them to send it to you. I was able to get the brochure for a couple of university. Imperial College, I was interested in Imperial College, University of Leeds. I think there was one more, I think it was Swansea University that I was interested in. So I had shortlisted, brought it down to this, and I went through those. That's how I discovered that you had advanced mechanical engineering and you had mechanical engineering, and they were not the same thing. So I could have spent a lot of money going to study mechanical engineering, and it would be a conversion course, which is suited to someone who maybe studied physics and wants to now come into mechanical engineering. And while I'll have a master's degree that says mechanical engineering, but I haven't gotten really the skills to the level that I really would desire. So those details actually matter. So either look for their prospectus, their brochures, go to their websites. You have as much information as you need. If you still need more, contact somebody there. Don't be afraid to email someone, ask a question. The worst that can happen is they'll say they are too busy to respond. Check the website, check here, check there. They'll direct you to where you get the information by yourself in detail. That's really the worst that can happen. They need students, so they'll respond to your queries. And then for scholarships, there are quite a few of them. And what I'll say for this one is be open-minded. Don't really think of it that it has to be only scholarships in Nigeria. There's scholarships from these universities as well. Some of them are looking for people who have first class. One of my colleagues, while we studied at Leeds, he had a first class, and so he got some of his fees wiped off because he applied to that. And honestly, I didn't even know that that existed, but he had done more research than myself. And I applied for that scholarship within the university. Check companies, they have their scholarships that they give. But what you want to do is to look at all these in advance. Don't simply wait till the last minute because they have timing. So some of them might be in January that they do their tests. Some of them might be later in the year. So do like a short list. Which places am I likely to get? And then check to see what time they do their selection processes. And you'll be able to apply to quite a number of them. You also know when you should have that admission, because for a number of them, they'll require you to have admission for it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. I think it's really important mentioning research. Like some of us want to have this information, just dumped on a platter of gold at our tables, and then when we don't get that, we seem to get discouraged. But I think it's really important that we do our research. Some people say there are not enough scholarships, but I beg to differ. I feel like if you actually look at some of these universities' websites, you see that some of them are giving 50% off maybe £10,000 off the school fees. You would find that you yourself, you need to know, oh, how much can I afford? Can I afford this? Can I afford that? Or can't I afford it at all? And then you know what prospects you have, what scholarships to look at, what schools to look at. I think it's really important that we all take that into consideration. I also know that we have a number of scholarships like Commonwealth shared scholarships. There's Chevening, there's PTDF, there's Shell, there's Shell, there's MasterCard, there's Erasmus. There are quite a couple of scholarships. There's Fulbright. There are quite a couple of scholarships for all of us to explore. So I think it's really important, right, that we all do a research into what we want to do and how we can go about it. Create a timeline plan. At this time, I have to do this, do that. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I personally have learned a lot from this session. And the last question I'll be asking before we take questions from the audience would be like, someone asked in the forms that they filled, how do I combine my academics, right, and my passion? So people have, maybe they love to sing, they love to draw, they love to paint, but maybe they are doing an engineering course, right? And we've all heard how hectic masters can be, how hectic PhD can be, and some people are like, I can't leave my passion to go and start reading book. If you find somebody doing PhD, you'll be like, you too like book, oh, now book just full your head, that kind of thing. So how do I combine these things? How do I plan my time priority? Or can both work together, or do I have to focus on one at the same time? Thank you.
So yes, there's opportunity cost. You're giving attention to one thing means that you're not giving attention to something else. What is it that you're really passionate about? Should you simply go after what you consider to be your passion, or should you look at the more practical? I put that in quotes. More practical. Be a lawyer, be a doctor, and I'll say for this question, there always needs to be that balance. You need to be strategic in choosing what it is that you're going to apply yourself to, what you're going to spend your time with. So, is it music? I think it's my nephew. He is interested in football. That's what he wants to do. Play football. That's his passion from when he was much younger. But you know what? Even after playing football, you're going to retire at some stage quite early, and you want to have those right skills. I think it's a thing of looking at how one thing can drive the other if they're not disjointed. One thing can still come in synergy. So the things that you're learning here, I'll give you an example. I was looking at, was it a documentary on Steve Jobs, and so the founder of Apple. And while he was, so I think this was in the 80s, while they had founded Apple and all of that, and he decided at some point he was interested in calligraphy. Calligraphy has, at least thinking of it then, has zero to do with computers.
True.
Going to learn how to write letters really well. But what did he do? He followed that, spent some time. It wasn't like he put a stop to his business and all of that, but he took some time and went and learned that it was actually something that he learned for just the fun of it at that stage. But it's said that Apple eventually had this beauty to his interface, his style, and all of that compared to Windows, which had the boring doors and all of that at that time. And what happened was he, having learned this, having had that knowledge in the background somewhere, you're working on this and you see, we can make this better, we can do this. And so he brought the knowledge of calligraphy, which had zero on the surface to do with computers, but he brought it in there, and in the long run paid off. So certain times it's something of still following what it is that you're interested in, still developing it. You have spare time. Believe me, you always make time for what is important to you, what truly interests you. So when someone says, I have no time for this, what I'm really hearing is, I have zero interest in this. If you tell me I was unable to read that article, to take this online course because I didn't have time, in reality is because you had very little interest in it. If not, somehow you will find time. So right now I'm mechanical engineering and all of that, but I'm actually taking a course on web design, web development rather. So learning some programming languages that are really not core mechanical engineering. Don't use them. So CSS, JavaScript, HTML. But somehow I think it's something I'm interested in, and at some point it will come in handy, I believe. Or the knowledge, you find out that there are ways that you can transfer it into other things. But for me, the key is making that extra time for self-development.
True.
What is it that you're interested in? I have a brother who is a manager, who is a pastor, who has several responsibilities. He has children. But one thing that I've watched him do consistently is get up early in the morning and read, even if it's for 2 hours, 1 hour. And during the pandemic, I was in his house for a bit of time. And consistently, he comes downstairs, he takes a book, and usually he tells me, oh, have you seen this book? Have you read that book? Some of it is on business management, some of it is on how to think creatively. There are different things. I'm reading one, Flash Foresight. And the thing is, he just makes that small amount of time daily to develop something he's interested away from his responsibilities as a father, as a pastor, the business he runs, and where he works, all completely different,
Wow.
making little time for that which he's really interested in. And that's something I'm trying to be more consistent in. So I'm trying to wake up a little earlier now, put in, even if it's 30 minutes, I'm going to start small and I'm going to get to that level. Put it 30 minutes, study what it is that I'm interested in, away from all the hustle and bustle, all the things that may be drawing my attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. I'm actually going to apply it myself. I'm going to wake up earlier every morning and spend some time reading and investing into what I want to become in the future. And I think that everybody here needs to take a cue from that. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. Like, it's been so lovely. It's been so lovely having you here. I'm just going to ask anyone in the audience, if you have any questions for Dr. Stephen, please, let's have your questions. You can unmute yourself and say something, or you can put your questions in the chat box below, and then I would help you ask them. So please, if you have any questions, just either unmute yourself or raise your hand, and then we'll ask you to say something. All right, do we have any questions?
And there was silence in heaven.
I hope we're all able to learn something. I hope we're all able to take something new. I hope we've all been inspired, to pursue our dreams, to look out for the career that, because the thing is, what many of us do not realize is where we are today is a product of the efforts we put in yesterday. And we tomorrow is a product of the efforts we would put in today plus that we put in yesterday, definitely. So I think that's why it's really important that we have people who have gone ahead of us. We call it standing on the shoulders of giants. Those who have gone ahead of us, who have seen the things that we want to go into, come and speak to us so that we can learn from their stories, learn from their history, learn from their mistakes, and ensure that we are putting our feet like on the right path and taking the best way possible to achieving the goals that we have. In the absence of any question, I would ask, first of all, I would like to say thank you so much, Dr. Stephen.
Thank you so much.
I believe that everybody on this
Sorry, Uncle Sam.
meeting. Okay.
Probably we could still ask from some of the question banks, because there are like 13 questions there.
Okay, yeah, we have some questions actually.
I was expecting them to type questions. Probably I could ask this one. What would you do differently if you were to go back in time? And how well do you see the industry in years to come? Well, this person is studying biochemistry. Yeah, so probably maybe your challenge is, what will you do differently if you were to go back in time? And how well do you see the industry in years to come?
Okay, how I'm going to, what I'll do differently. First of all, I will listen to, there's this thing where you have people come who have gone before you, advise you about things, and you listen and you say very good advice, but you say very difficult to implement. And so you just go and do something else. So there are quite a few things that probably I could have streamlined my efforts better. So planning better, being clearer on what my end goals were, and streamline better towards them. So was it to learn how to use certain software? I'm talking about hard skills right now. Use certain software, knowing that, and that's the thing about not just going with what is in vogue now, but looking at trends and saying, okay, in 5-10 years to come, what skills will I really need to be relevant in what it is that I'm pursuing? What are the emerging trends? And to align myself with those things. I think I'll be clearer on those aspects and try to channel my energies better. For the industry, what industry are you talking about? Industry as per engineering industry, mechanical engineering industry. For one, I see the industry. I'm now talking about engineering in general. I see it going away from like fossil fuels. You've been hearing about renewables. I think we're at that tipping point where a lot of things are going to go that way. There are quite a number of companies, research groups that are really channeling their energies towards renewable energy systems. So you find out that trends. Now I'm going to allude to something that I've looked at and seen constantly in my research field, where you had drones. They were there for many, many years, but it's in the last 10, 20 years that suddenly there was that upsurge of drones everywhere. But what happened was you had maturing technology for the supporting technology. So like the batteries, the electronics, control systems, all of those things matured really quickly in the last few years. And so you see that you're applying this to several aspects. Renewable energy, that's exactly the same thing that we're seeing right now. You see things like storage systems, because one of the major things that I keep talking about renewable energy is that it's intermittent. It's not practical because of you can't have it every time. You're having batteries develop, you're having the cost fall. So that's one aspect that you can expect there to be a lot of change. Artificial intelligence, AI, going from hard products, the having to have things solid to simulation. I think a lot of things are going to go away from having those big bulky physical systems to being done on small computers. And AI is going to be driving that a lot. One aspect I'm going to just allude to is wind tunnel testing. That's something that I worked with. And you find out that in industry, who wants to go and have to either build one mighty large wind tunnel to test different things? Rather, you can run simulations for all of that. So you find out that a lot of things are going away from having to build, design any of those big things to go into those virtualization. So basically look at those hard trends that are emerging, and it should help you position yourself to take full advantage of the emerging systems.
Thank you so much. I think one other question we have here, maybe the last for the evening, because our time is fast spent.
You heard about this career path that you have or anything. So I was reading a question someone put, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
Are there any? I'll just have that instead. Are there any expectations you had about this career path that you have found differ to reality, or you have found to be different from reality? Like, are there dreams you had about your career that when you actually now got into your career, you realized that it wasn't realistic or it may not be possible? So talking about, like, he wants to find out if what you expected or what you wanted, choosing your career, was what you met and when you finally went into it.
There were differences, there were changes from what it was that I expected coming into research. First of all, let me talk about that. First of all, you expect somehow that everything should work first time, everything should happen linearly. It doesn't happen that way. You find out that a lot of things you're going to have to repeat, redo, reboot things that you felt you knew very well. You find out that those things are going to be challenged. Um, I think it's now important for each and every one of us to have the characteristic of resilience. So looking at those changes, but saying, I'm going to adapt to the changes. I'm going to make changes in myself. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to embrace it and look for the opportunities in them. So that was one major aspect. I felt, and this was a big if, I felt somehow it was going to just be where you come into a lab and everything is ready and waiting for you. And it's going to be kind of plug and play. For me, I think that was one of the big shockers that for a lot of the things I came in and I had to help put them in place. For some of the things, it had to be me trying to say, okay, I needed this, I needed that. But at the end of the day, that is still how you're going to expect it in industry, in real life. Not everything is handed to you on a platter. You're going to come, you're going to see that there are gaps, there are things that you thought were going to be easy to get, but you have to maybe start from scratch to develop certain things. You have to go to some other people to say, do you have this tool? Do you have this equipment? Can you help me with this? You find out that it's not really a solo sport as some of us might think of it, but in reality, you're going to have to get the support, get the help of some other people. So a few of those things were quite different from my expectation. In the oil and gas industry, in the energy industry, I somehow expected it to be a bit of having several different problems to solve on a daily basis. And don't get me wrong, there's that trying to optimize processes, methods, systems. But overall, I think there was a bit of a routine, and that happens when it is that you stay with one product line, one product service line, and you do it over and over and over and over and over. It becomes a bit routine, and you find out that certain things that you think, okay, I'm going to simply bring in my engineering skills, they've already been done. So that's a good thing in a sense, but also I think I was expecting a bit more challenge.
Yeah.
On the other hand, so
Thank you so much, Doctor. Do we have any more questions, please? Yeah, we are, I think, 3 minutes behind time. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen. We are so grateful to have you. I would like to invite, thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Sam. You've been a very good uncle.
Grateful to have you. I've learned a lot personally, and I'm sure we have all learned a lot on here. I would like to invite the convener of this.
No, just end. Thank you.
As
Just end.
Doctor said,
I want to hear from you, Doctor.
Doctor said, we would like to have you close.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Uncle Sam. Thank you, Dr. Stephen. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Anu, Michael, Joy. I was hoping you guys would have questions to ask, but I'm guessing some of their questions may have been answered last week and all that. So thank you very, very much. Thank you, David. I think, Stephen, you should be able to remember David. Thank you. All right, guys. So take care of yourselves. Next week, yeah, I just remembered. Next week, we're going to have 3 speakers. So we're going to have 2 females for a change. And has Dr. Stephen, okay, he unmuted himself. He muted himself. We're going to have 3 speakers. We're going to have 2 female speakers and a male as well. So, and they're all in the construction industry. And I'm just trying to remember, I've not confirmed yet, but I think on the 31st we'll have someone from. I'm working towards that, but I won't let you down. We'll have someone from Owando, but I don't want to tell you yet, but I will make sure I get that sorted for you guys. So thank you very much, Dr. Stephen. Thank you, everyone. You guys, please let's come on time by 8 o'clock. And also, please learn to mute your mic so we don't have interference as well. All right, guys, take care of yourselves. All right, guys, take care of yourselves. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen, guys. All right, bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
And you too. Bye, everyone. Bye. Thank you. Okay, I can stop recording.